What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? I'm John. This is 3 and Out podcast, and another day of training camp. So we're just slogging along. The players and coaches are. Us fans and podcasters are just at home following it. And we're making progress because if you're listening to this on Thursday, we have the Hall of Fame game Thursday night. And we're off and running with backups playing football. So it's better than nothing. I am not going to complain. I will take a football game. I don't care who's playing. If NFL teams or their logos are on the field, I don't count XFL and UFL. It doesn't do it for me. You give me NFL football, even if it's third stringers, it'll pique my interest and get my blood flowing here in early August. But today I wanted to dive into a couple things. First, I think we officially have to label a trade the potential transaction in the history of sports. Unofficially, I'm going to do it today. We can't quite officially do it, but it sure feels like we're trending that way. Something happened in Jets practice, and I wanted to go over some of my training camp pet peeves because I see things around, and I've seen it for years now, and it drives me bonkers. And I wanted to go around the league a little bit and pull a little sound and hear from some players, some stuff going on with the Bears and the Titans that made me chuckle. So, Diana Rossini said Pats made a contract offer to Matt Judon. He claims that's BS. Love that stuff. All in for back and forth. People not on the same page arguing. I'm in. Keep us entertained here in late July, early August. But obviously, before we dive into some football, do you want to go to one of these football games? Do you want to attend an NFL or college football game this upcoming fall? Well, good thing I got you covered because my friends at Gametime, the official ticketing app of this podcast, will take care of you. I was watching Yankees just traded for this dude on the Marlins. He's hitting bombs like he's Babe Ruth. Phillies, they're going to be in the playoffs. Looks like the Mets might be there. Baseball playoffs, highly recommend. Obviously, football, college or pro. If you want to go, we got you, dog. Concerts, see any act you want. If they're coming to your town, if you want to travel to see them, just go to Gametime. Check out their ticket prices. Check out the venues. Gives you price points, sight lines. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I would say Ryan Poles' tenure early on was rocky. He made a trade that was pretty embarrassing when he traded for Chase Claypool. But I don't care who you look at. It could be Bill Walsh, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick. Everyone makes bad moves. Obviously, when you don't have a long resume on the job as the boss and you're new to a job, a move early on in your career that's bad is magnified, right? When Belichick would make shitty moves in 2016, no one cared. It's like, well, I've won 4 Super Bowls. We plan on winning a couple more, and I'll see you in 3 more AFC Championship games, right? So Ryan Poles, I would say, has, to quote Dumb and Dumber, totally redeemed himself because I think there's a chance that the Bears trade with the Carolina Panthers will go down as the greatest transaction in the history of American sports. I looked at it today. It is insane. And it got me thinking because yesterday when I was recording the podcast, I'd already recorded the main part of the podcast. We were starting the mailbag. News broke about DJ Moore getting a massive extension. I mean, the dude had 96 catches, 1,300 plus yards, and 8 touchdowns with, multiple different quarterbacks. Most of could not throw very well. Like what? DJ Moore's a stud. He was part of the deal. And listen, anytime you make a trade, even if it's for a great player, or a big draft day trade, there's luck involved. I mean, let's face it, there is luck involved in most transactions. I heard a story when I was in Tahoe about Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors. Well, he accumulated his wealth in the investing venture capital world, and he was partners with some guys. And they were one of the first big investors into a little company called Google. And at the time, Google, I don't know if they were quite a company based out of a garage, but they were closer to that than what they are now. And they were not some can't miss home run. And from my understanding, that transaction netted them well over $500 million. And the investment, a couple $1,000,000, whatever it was, it's an all-timer. And even when you hear these stories, like even if you believe in what you're doing, it's hard to think about the best case scenario. And I think when you look at the Chicago Bears, it was an easy trade for them to make because they were essentially getting 3 first-round picks. They were swapping to 9. They were getting the following year's first-round pick, and they were getting DJ Moore, which Ryan Poles said we valued as a first-round pick, which I would agree with him because when they traded for him, now they gave him an extension. He was already under his second contract, so he was a cost-controlled player. I mean, they just gave a guy an extension. He has 2 more years on his deal, so they're getting out ahead of it. They also received 2 second-round picks, one that first year and then another one coming in 2025. But if you look at it from the Carolina standpoint, they traded for Bryce Young. That's their asset. They got Bryce Young, who I've heard is having a pretty solid camp. And listen, I'm not trying to act like he's got no shot, but if you watched him his rookie year, the size, even if you think he can get better at playing and they do a better job coaching around him, it's just hard to envision a guy 5'9", $175. God, he weighed in at 200 at the combine. I think that was minimum 15 pounds of fake weight. So I'll give him 184 to be some high-end top 15 player. But the Chicago Bears now officially, with extending DJ Moore, here is what they netted from that trade. When they traded back to 9, they actually then did another trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, just from 9 to 10, and selected the guy clearly they would have taken at 9. And they got a 4th-round pick, which they used this year. They drafted Darnell Wright, who started 17 games for them at right tackle. I'm not acting like he's the next Lane Johnson, but based on his rookie year, he's pretty good. And anytime you get a starting tackle, that's a win. Well, obviously, because of they also had a 2nd-round pick last year, which they traded up a couple spots and got Tyreek Stevenson, who started 16 games for them across from their all-pro, Pro Bowl corner, Jalen Johnson. So they got a starting tackle and a starting corner. That's just year 1. Then because the Panthers couldn't have been any worse, it led them to get Caleb Williams. And let's remove the corner, the right tackle, and DJ Moore. There is not a team in the history of football, NFL, AFL, UFL, XFL, USFL, any European leagues who would trade Caleb Williams for Bryce Young. The Panthers, obviously last year, would have taken Bryce or Caleb Williams if he had been eligible to come out. We all said it 2 years ago. If Caleb Williams could have been in that draft, he would have been the number 1 overall pick. So they got an inferior player if it was just 1-to-1. But the Bears already accumulated right tackle, starting corner, DJ Moore, and now Caleb Williams. But because of that trade with the Eagles, going back 1 spot, they had an extra 2024 4th-round pick. And they took a punter who, listen, anytime you draft a kicker or punter, great unknown. Because a lot of undrafted guys at those positions come on to be great players. This guy was the right guy winner. So who knows? But if they get their starting punter, their starting quarterback, starting right tackle, starting left corner or right corner, depending on the day, what angle you're at, and DJ Moore. But we're not done yet. We're not done. The trade is not over. They still have a 2025 2nd-round pick coming. I think if most of us were being objective, no bias, right? not a Panther fan, not a Panther hater, not betting on it or whatever. If we say, where are the Panthers this season most likely to be drafting? 1 through 10, 11 through 20, or 21 through 32? I think if we did a poll, like one of those political polls, but one that actual people that participated in, I think the overwhelming majority of people would pick in the top 10. So if you're drafting in the top 10, that means your second round pick is usually pretty good. I was watching Giants Hard Knocks the other night, or I guess last night. Well, part of sucking and having a top 10 pick means you draft high in the other rounds. So it's a great benefit because now, granted, they used their second round pick to get Brian Burns, pick 39, but they had another second round pick. I have to go look up where it came from. But my point is, when you stink, this is why I've always defended when good teams have a rough year or two drafting. You do know it's difficult drafting pick 28, which also means you're drafting at the end of every round. So you are getting the shittiest player in theory in each round. It is difficult. It is way easier to be drafting 7th and then carry over through the rounds. You should have a good draft. If you don't, that's on you. It's why once you're good and you have good drafts like Veach, like you get extra credit because you're not exactly swimming in the deep end on that. Most of the talent is off the board by the time your selection comes around. So listen, there's luck involved in this. Even though based on what they were getting, it was so much they had to say yes. I would say this could not have gone any better. And it could not be going that much better. If Caleb Williams becomes a top 10 quarterback, I would say regardless of these other players, you could argue it's one of the great trades ever. If Darnell Wright is their right tackle for the next 8-9 years, if DJ Moore continues to produce as he's been producing his entire career with random quarterbacks, if Tyreek Stevenson continues to start at corner, one of the most important positions on the field, if the dude they draft in the 4th round is just their punter, and if they get anything out of this 2025 second round, I don't see how it's humanly possible to do more in a trade. I think this will easily go down as the greatest trade, not in NFL history, in American history. Maybe there have been more transcendent trades. Babe Ruth, right, was once traded. Joe Montana was traded. The bigger individual names at the time were traded. But just in terms of a totality of what you accumulated for the number 1 overall pick, Ryan Poles should get an extension off this alone. He really should. I mean, I don't know how it gets any better from a general manager. I really don't. If I was an owner, I would extend him right now just based on looking at the information we have based on the trade. And that's got to be one. And David Tepper, listen, he's in the investing world. He's all-time stock trader. You're not going to win them all. But it's tough when you swing and whiff on something like this. This one is going to be hard to shake. It's easy to go, well, it's water under the bridge. You know, it's sunk cost. Not sunk costs are all the same, right? Not sunk costs are all equal. It's one thing if you walk in, you're like, God, bought a bunch of chicken from Costco. It's all rotten. Whatever, you spent $50. Remodel your whole house, have the roof leak, and ruin your entire floor. A little different. I would say they don't parallel each other. And I would put this under one of those disastrous sunk costs. Not playing best ball at DraftKings? You're missing out. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with two millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're set it and forget it type, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger roster so injuries won't end your season. Only the draft and that's it. You're set for the year. 15 million prize pool. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20
$8 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get in on all the best ball action. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire contest to get a bonus ticket and get a shot at being crowned one of the 2 millionaires only on DraftKings. One thing that drives me nuts are camp reports that gain a lot of steam. And listen, I'm not anti all these reporters at practice. I've done it forever, tweeting about what's going on. It is entertaining and it's fun. Where I do have a gripe is the things we pick and choose. And I understand the way social media works. There was a video yesterday of Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson on the field, which what looked like after a team drill. And they were, Garrett Wilson was kind of screaming at him and Rodgers was giving it back. And everyone's like, what does this mean? Sometimes it happens when a coach, I saw, was it George Pickens the other day? This was probably before Pads came on, was getting into it with a position coach. You know what this is called, guys? Football. It's called football. To me, controversial things in training camp are like what's going on with Matt Judon, or they had to tell him to leave the practice field. That's a problem. Coaches yelling at players, players yelling at coaches, players yelling at each other is called training camp. So I saw this, like nothing is dumber to me than making a big deal about people getting into it on the sideline during practice. It's really hot. You're grinding it out, especially in, I would say, most levels of football, high school, college, pro. The offense is typically slow. It's usually not on the same page, where the defense has a massive advantage. So your offense gets frustrated. Like I said, welcome to the sport. Here's another one. And I saw this because probably a disproportionate amount of things that I follow are content creators for the 49ers. And this was a big, big deal last year because people are like, are we sure Brock Purdy should be the starter? Give Trey Lance a shot. Turned out Trey Lance was never even going to win the second string quarterback. But every interception that happened in practice, you would have felt like it was a fourth quarter of a playoff game. It's like, guys, you do realize that interceptions for starting quarterbacks, established starting quarterbacks, are completely irrelevant. It's kind of like spring training in baseball when you see starters give up a lot of home runs. In Arizona, it happens a lot. Partly the ball flies here. But the other thing is sometimes the starter after the game would be like, you gave up 4 home runs. Like, yeah, I was only throwing fastballs. I was just working on my fastball location. And I see this with Brock Purdy. He threw some picks. It's like, well, yeah, he could check the ball down every single play in practice. McCaffrey, or work on his timing and push the ball down the field. And in July, if you're going to throw some interceptions, and this goes for a Dak Prescott, a Kirk Cousins, you name it. No one really nitpicks like a Mahomes if he throws picks in practice, or even Josh Allen or Lamar at this point. But there is the group of other guys, Derek Carr. If you are a 100% lock starter week 1, interceptions in training camp do not matter. Nobody cares. Now, if you just threw a pick every single play, you couldn't function as a team. There was one stretch, might have been Jimmy Garoppolo's, might have been the year they went to the Super Bowl in 2019. It could have been 21. I lose track of time. Might have been after that, like 21. Well, I think he threw 4 straight interceptions in practice, and 2 of them were pick sixes. And do you know what happened? Jimmy Garoppolo was starting quarterback. And when the dust settled, you know what happened? The 49ers were in the playoffs. And I just think, listen, practice is about working on things, developing timing. It's no different than spring training with the pitchers. You should not be perfect in practice. And like I said, it's well documented. I saw Jim Harbaugh talking about this the other day. It's pretty well established. Defenses are way ahead of offenses in high-level college football and definitely in the NFL. Now, I just, some of the stuff that gets made a big deal is pretty laughable. Now, I did see a couple clips throughout the last 24, 48 hours that I thought just were incredible. And one thing I miss in sports, this used to happen a lot in baseball, is their managers would throw some legendary tirades. Remember Hal McRae has one, Lasorda has a bunch, Leland has some good ones. They don't really exist anymore, and I miss that. And it's kind of sad. The NBA used to have huge personalities with their coaches, and they used to just get in a lot of tussles with the press. And it doesn't happen as much anymore now. It's more over social media. And I get being a player, if you were young and seeing just like overweight radio host. Well, let's just go to this. This Tennessee Titans and Jeffery Simmons, who I was texting with a buddy on the staff. He's like, it is stupid how good this guy is. Like when he tries on a given play, we have no shot to stop him. I mean, he's one of the best defensive linemen in the league. And to put this in context, I can't. I don't follow Tennessee radio. I don't know what was tweeted. Honestly, I don't care. This was just incredible.
Yeah, Jeff, you want to sit down? We can talk whenever you want to talk. Jeff, we'll deal with that later. Roger McCreary sitting down with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Jeff, I mean, we're on the air right now. I'm right here, Jeff. We can talk anytime you want to. Unbelievable.
We got to make that happen.
Well, we'll deal with that later on. Roger McCreary sitting down with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Jeff, if you want to sit down and talk about this, we can talk about this. I'm talking to you right here. Jeff, we tried to talk to you last week. I'm being rude to Roger. We'll deal with you later.
I mean, his teammates sitting down. He is taking collateral, just friendly fire everywhere. There's just a disaster. You got the radio host. And listen, I have been in this situation. I would guess that radio station has the Titans games. When I worked in the Bay Area, we had the Raiders games. So if you were being critical and stuff during training camp, they set you up right there. Like we were right on the field. And social media probably then 14, 15, 16 kind of range was a little different than it is now. It's probably way more powerful now, but it could be a little awkward. But I do appreciate, like I'm a sucker for a good radio host and a player that know each other through the airwaves, the podcast waves, social media, seeing each other in person and just kind of screaming it out. And I saw that Jeffery Simmons has apologized, said that it was out of character, and I guess they hashed it out. I want more of that. I miss that. Some of my greatest memories as a young sports fan was mayhem. I mean, one of the most legendary clips of all time is Jim Rome with Chris Everett, or Jim Everett, and he kept calling him Chris Everett. And Jim Everett, who clearly was a big MFer, basically picked up Jim Rome and slammed him to the ground. But I just think we need more of that. we really do. I thought I was going to have that actually at the combine when Dayball got on the elevator with me, but we didn't even say a word. I was buckled up. I was ready. I was like, I'm going to get it right now. Not physically, but I thought he was going to be pissed. Which, listen, he has his right. I said what I said, which was factual. And by the way, Dayball looks fantastic right now. I mean, he's got to be on Ozempic. He claimed Pilates, but you just can't lose that much weight. And listen, I'm not anti-Ozempic or whatever. I'm someone who's, battles a little bit, trying to eat a little healthy. So props to Dayball. He really looks he looks great. But this might have been one of the best things I've ever heard. Last year, like the overwhelming majority, 100% of sports fans, unless you went to Shepherd College or worked as an NFL scout currently, you had never heard of this human, Tyson Bagent. And he ended up playing. And he actually started the game, beat the Raiders, which I'm pretty sure did in Josh McDaniels because he got fired the next day. But this is a player who I don't know much about because he's not one of those guys you watch through college. You just learned about him when he got to the NFL. And he was asked about competing kind of for a backup job and gave one of the greatest answers of all time.
What was the hardest grinding your face off thing that you did?
June 19th, shout out to my one of my best friends, Derek Gallagher, 1 mile burpee broad jump. Hour and 7 minutes. Let's go.
Is that burpee for a mile?
Burpee broad jump. Burpee broad jump. 1 mile.
How many calories did you burn out?
I don't know. I ate a lot after that. It was nice.
One thing I think I'm going to attempt to do, because I get asked a lot, like, what do you do? And I used to try to like give a long spiel, like, I used to work in radio. Now I'm in the podcast business. And they're like, what will you sell? I'm like, no, I host podcasts. And over the last couple of years, you just get more secure. You're like, I'm a podcaster, right? I just say that. I think when someone asks me what I do for a living, I'm just going to say grind my face off. I can't even imagine doing a mile of burpee broad jumps. He said he did it in an hour. And this is a guy who's in the NFL. I wonder if you took just a random guy like me, mid, late 30s, decent shape, goes to the gym, how long it would take me to accomplish that. How many times I would throw up, if I would even be able to move. If it took an NFL athlete of burpee broad jumps an hour, do you think what would be the over-under for just a random non-professional athlete who just goes to the gym in decent shape to accomplish that? Hour and a half? 2? I can't even fathom the pain you would feel in your legs. Your heart might explode. You wouldn't be able to breathe. And like he said, like, does it help me at football? Like, not directly. It doesn't help me read a defense or make a better throw, but mentally, and I totally agree. That feels like something that SEAL Team 6 would do, or you would have to do for SEAL Team 6 to even give you a shot to be on the squad. Where would you even think about that? Where would someone come up? We're going to go a mile burpee broad jumps. And obviously a burpee is just down and up, essentially. And I think you kind of add a push-up or not, but in the broad jump, I'm speechless. I really am. I think that's one of the greatest achievements of actual sports, like not like a golfer or tennis or football or rugby or whatever, like a real sport, just a CrossFit type workout I've ever heard of. I truly believe that. That is a remarkable accomplishment. Other than that, we're going to have Jake Rosenberg, who used to be one of Howie's right-hand men, on the pod tomorrow. We're going to call it Contracts for Dummies, because I, like most of you, get really confused with dead money, cap, bonuses, like how it all works. It's very simple in baseball and basketball. It's like, yeah, we just signed him $200 million. He gets $40 million a year. Or we signed him to a 3-year, $100 million deal in baseball. He can opt out after 2 years. This year he makes 25. Next year he makes 35. And you're like, follow that. Last year he makes 30 if he opts in. Football, you just never truly know what's going on. So we will discuss that. And other than that, I did see something crazy yesterday on Instagram. Sometimes you're scrolling Instagram. It's crazy, their algorithms, how they work, right? I'll get something with a dog that'll make me laugh or cry. Then I'll get some highlight package from, 1996 of Barry Sanders, which I'll just be glued to for like 4 minutes. And then I'll get like Joe Rogan discussing drumsticks, the ice cream. And I had never seen this, and it really made me question myself, is that someone took one of those drumsticks, which I would say over under drumsticks I've had in my life, probably closer to 100 than it is 50. They left it out all night. Right. If you leave ice cream, I'm man enough to admit, as a struggling skinny fat guy, I've ordered ice cream on DoorDash before. I don't want to go to Cold Stone or Baskin Robbins or whatever. And you almost have to do the express to even give yourself a chance, as the ultimate lazy move, to hope it's not too melted. And you don't have to put it into the freezer for extra 10, 15 minutes because it's kind of melted. But ice cream melts, right? I mean, that's what happens. But these people, or this guy ran an experiment. He left a drumstick out all night. Actually, it was 24 hours. And you know how the nuts are on the chocolate on top of the cone, and he cut it, and the ice cream hadn't melted. And I guess on the drumstick box, to consider something ice cream, it has to have like 10% of milk fat or whatever. And they don't even consider it ice cream. And I started thinking to myself, holy moly, how bad all the drumsticks I've eaten. I mean, my parents used to get them for us when we were kids. You go to sleepovers, someone would have like 2 boxes of drumsticks. You like 3 of your buddies, and you'd cash both boxes by 9:00 at night. Turns out, I was telling Maria, because then it really got me thinking. Remember those, anyone that is kind of similar to my age, the Lunchables, which are basically charcuterie for little kids. But then they also created the pizza one. You know, the pizza, they give you like 3, 4 little pizzas. They give you some pepperoni, some cheese, and some sauce. I mean, I can't even imagine what was in those things. And I used to house those in like 6th, 7th grade all the time. But keep your head on a swivel when you're eating, man.